I remember the exact moment I realized I was different from my family. Not in the dramatic, movie scene way, no slammed doors or shouted revelations. It was quieter than that, more insidious. I was 11, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework while my mother brushed my sister Vanessa's hair in the living room. The afternoon light came through the curtains in that golden, dusty way that makes everything look softer than it really is. "You're going to be stunning when you grow up," my mother said to Vanessa, her voice carrying that particular warmth she reserved only for her. "Absolutely stunning. You have my bone structure." I kept my eyes on my math problems, pencil moving across the page in careful loops. Vanessa laughed, that crystalline sound that seemed to brighten every room she entered. Even then, at 9 years old, she knew how to hold attention like it was something she was born understanding. My father looked up from his newspaper. "She'll break hearts, that one." I waited for them to say something about me, anything, even something simple, like noticing I'd gotten an A on my spelling test, the paper still tucked in my folder, waiting to be celebrated. But the conversation moved on to Vanessa's upcoming dance recital, and I went back to my fractions, dividing things into smaller and smaller pieces until they almost disappeared. That's how it was growing up. Not cruel exactly, just absent, like I was a sketch in the background of a painting where Vanessa was the subject, rendered in full color, every detail attended to with care. Vanessa was the kind of beautiful that made people stop mid-sentence. Dark hair that fell in natural waves, eyes the color of honey catching light, a smile that seemed to promise something wonderful just around the corner. She wore that beauty easily, the way some people wear old sweaters, comfortable, unthinking, natural. By the time she was 16, she was modeling part-time. By 20, she had a following on social media that numbered in the hundreds of thousands. I was me. Brown hair that never quite did anything interesting, average height, average features, the kind of face that people's eyes slide past in photographs. I wasn't ugly, I knew that objectively, but I wasn't the kind of girl who made people look twice. And in a family where appearance seemed to be the primary currency, I was perpetually broke. So I found other things to value. I read constantly, disappearing into libraries and bookshops, finding solace in stories where quiet people mattered. I studied hard, got good grades, went to a state university on a partial scholarship. I majored in social work because I wanted to help people who felt invisible, the way I often did. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents attended my college graduation, but they left early. Vanessa had a photo shoot in the city that evening, something for a boutique jewelry brand, and they wanted to be there. My mother hugged me quickly in the parking lot, her perfume, something expensive and floral, lingering after she pulled away. "We're so proud of you, sweetie," she said, but her eyes were already drifting to her phone, checking the time. "You worked so hard." My father clapped my shoulder. "Good job, kiddo. Solid degree. Practical." Practical. That was the word they always used for me. Practical. Sensible. Reliable. Words that felt like participation trophies, given not because you'd won anything, but because it would be rude not to acknowledge you'd shown up. After graduation, I got a job at a community center in a neighborhood where rent was cheap and the grocery store only had 2 aisles. I helped families navigate social services, find housing assistance, apply for food stamps. The work was exhausting and often heartbreaking, but it felt real in a way nothing else in my life had. These people saw me. They needed me. That mattered. I lived in a small apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin enough that I could hear the rumble of the dryers below, a steady rhythm that became oddly comforting. I furnished it with secondhand finds, a bookshelf from a yard sale, a coffee table with a wobbly leg I fixed with a folded piece of cardboard, a couch I found on Craigslist that smelled faintly of lavender from the previous owner's cat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Vanessa, by contrast, moved into a luxury apartment downtown, paid for partly by her modeling work and partly by our parents, who seemed to consider it an investment in her future. She posted photos constantly, morning coffee against floor-to-ceiling windows, artfully arranged meals at trendy restaurants, herself in designer clothes gifted by brands hoping for exposure. Her life looked like a magazine spread, every moment curated for maximum visual impact. We didn't talk much anymore, not out of animosity exactly. We just existed in different worlds. When we did see each other at family dinners, she'd ask me polite questions about my work, her attention drifting to her phone every few seconds. I'd ask about her latest projects, and she'd light up telling elaborate stories about photographers and creative directors and the vision for various campaigns. Our mother would watch Vanessa with undisguised pride, jumping in with additional details, showing photos to everyone at the table. Our father would nod along, occasionally interjecting with, "That's my girl," at particularly impressive moments. And I would sit there, cutting my chicken into neat pieces, smiling at the right times, excusing myself early to go home to my apartment above the laundromat where no one expected me to be anything other than myself. I met James on a Tuesday afternoon in February. I remember because it was unexpectedly warm for winter, one of those false spring days where everyone walks around without coats, knowing they'll regret it tomorrow, but unable to resist the temporary gift of sunshine. I was at the park near the community center, eating lunch on a bench, when a basketball rolled to a stop by my feet. I looked up to see a man jogging over, slightly out of breath, smiling apologetically. "Sorry about that," he said, bending to pick up the ball. "My nephew thinks I'm still 25 and can keep up with him." I glanced over to where a boy of about 8 was waving impatiently from the basketball court. "Looks like he's winning that argument." He laughed, and it was such a genuine sound, no performance in it, just pure amusement. "Yeah, he really is. I'm James, by the way." "Emma?" He hesitated for a moment, the ball tucked under one arm. "You come here often? That sounds like a terrible pickup line. I just mean, I'm here a lot with my nephew, and I've seen you reading on this bench before." "I work nearby," I said, gesturing vaguely toward the community center. "This is my lunch spot." "Uncle James," the boy called out. "Come on." "Duty calls," James said, but he was still smiling at me. "Maybe I'll see you here again?" Maybe. And I did see him again. 3 days later, in fact, on another unseasonably warm afternoon. This time he sat down on the other end of my bench, his nephew sprawled on the grass nearby, playing some elaborate game with sticks and rocks. "What are you reading?" he asked. I showed him the cover, a novel about a woman who inherits her grandmother's bakery and discovers a family secret hidden in recipes. "Any good?" "It's sweet," I said. "Sometimes I need sweet." "I get that." He was quiet for a moment, watching his nephew. "I'm a teacher, 4th grade. By the end of the day, my brain is pretty much mush, so I stick to podcasts and documentaries, less effort required." We talked for 20 minutes that day, then an hour the next week. Then he started bringing 2 coffees, one for each of us, our conversations stretching longer as winter grudgingly gave way to actual spring. He told me about his students, about the kid who insisted on bringing her pet rock to school every day and introducing it to everyone, about the boy who wrote a story about a superhero whose power was making really good sandwiches. I told him about the families I worked with, the small victories, a mom finding stable housing, a kid getting accepted into an after-school program, a veteran finally getting approved for benefits after months of applications. James was kind in a way that seemed effortless, not because he wanted anything, not because he was trying to impress me, but because kindness was simply how he moved through the world. He noticed things, when I was having a bad day, when I needed to talk, when I needed to sit in comfortable silence. He made me laugh with terrible puns and stories about his students. He listened like listening was the most important thing he could be doing. 3 months after we met, he kissed me in that park, the evening light turning everything amber and soft. It wasn't like the movies, no swelling music, no rain, no grand gesture. It was just us, on that bench, his hand gentle against my cheek, and it was perfect. We dated for a year before he proposed. Nothing elaborate, he took me back to that same park bench where we'd met, at sunset, and pulled a simple ring from his pocket. Not a diamond, but a vintage garnet stone, deep red and warm. "I know this isn't fancy," he said, and I could hear the nervousness in his voice. "And I'm not rich. I'm never going to be rich teaching 4th grade. But I love you, Emma. I love how you see people, really see them. I love how you care. I love your terrible taste in comfort food and the way you dog your pages in books even though you know it's sacrilege. I love you, and I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he'd even finished speaking. I said yes, and I meant it with every particle of my being. And for the first time in my life, I felt like someone had chosen me first, not as a consolation prize, not as an afterthought, but as their first choice, their only choice. I called my mother that night to tell her. She answered on the fourth ring, and I could hear conversation in the background. They were at some event, probably one of Vanessa's things. "Emma!" "Hi, sweetie. Is everything okay?" The assumption that I would only call if something was wrong stung a little, but I pushed past it. "Everything's great, Mom. I have news. I'm engaged." There was a pause. "Engaged? To who?" "His name is James. He's a teacher. He's wonderful, Mom. I really want you to meet him." "A teacher," she repeated, and something in her tone made my happiness deflate slightly. That's great, honey. We'll have to meet him soon. Let me tell your father. Hold on." I heard muffled conversation, then my father's voice. "Emma, your mother says you're engaged?" "Yes, Dad. I'm really happy." "Well, congratulations. When did this happen?" "Just today. He proposed in the park where we met." "The park?" Another weighted pause. "Well, that's nice. We're happy for you, sweetheart. We'll talk more about this soon. We're at a thing for your sister right now, but we'll call you this weekend, okay?" "Okay," I said, but I felt something crumbling inside me. They didn't call that weekend, or the next. When I finally heard from my mother 2 weeks later, it was a text message. "Sorry we've been so busy. Vanessa has big news too. Call when you can." I called. Vanessa's big news was that she'd landed a campaign with a major cosmetics company. Her face would be on billboards and in magazines nationwide. My mother could barely contain her excitement, words tumbling over each other as she described the photo shoot, the creative direction, the exposure this would bring. "That's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. I was happy for Vanessa, but I also felt that familiar ache, that sense of being the supporting character in someone else's story. "So about my engagement?" "Oh yes, your teacher, James was it? You'll have to bring him to dinner sometime." Sometime. Not a specific date, not an actual plan, just sometime. A word that meant when we remember or when nothing more important is happening. I met James at our favorite coffee shop later that afternoon, sliding into the booth across from him with a smile I didn't quite feel. "How'd it go?" he asked, looking up from the essay he'd been grading. "Fine," I said. "They're happy for us." He studied my face for a moment, then reached across the table to take my hand. But nothing. It's fine." "Emma." I sighed, squeezing his fingers. "It's just, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm invisible to them, like I only exist in the margins of Vanessa's life." "You're not invisible to me," he said quietly. "You're everything to me." And he meant it. I could see it in his eyes, feel it in the way he held my hand. For James, I was enough. I was more than enough. I was everything. So why did I still crave my family's approval? Why did I still want them to see me the way James did? I didn't have an answer to that. I still don't, not really. Maybe you never stop wanting your parents to love you the way you needed them when you were young. We set our wedding date for the following spring, April 15th, a Saturday. We planned something simple and intimate, a ceremony in the public park where we'd met, followed by a small reception at a local restaurant. Budget-friendly, genuine, focused on the people we loved rather than the spectacle. I sent my parents a save-the-date card in the mail, along with a handwritten note asking if they'd like to be involved in the planning. I imagined, foolishly, that this might be a chance to feel closer to them, to share something meaningful. My mother called a few days after receiving it. "Emma, honey, about your wedding date." "What about it?" "Well, Vanessa's been seeing someone, Bradley Cunningham. His family owns Cunningham Properties. They're huge in real estate. It's getting serious, and they're talking about getting engaged." I waited, sensing where this was going, but hoping I was wrong. "If they do get engaged, they'll probably want to plan the wedding quickly. You know how these things work with wealthy families. They have connections, can book venues on short notice. I'm just saying you might want to consider choosing a different date, just in case. We wouldn't want any conflicts." My chest felt tight. Mom, I've already booked the park permit and the restaurant. We've sent save the dates to our friends. I know, sweetie, but parks are free, right? And restaurants can change reservations. I'm just asking you to be flexible. Vanessa's wedding would be a much bigger affair. Bradley's family will expect something lavish. Your wedding will be lovely and simple, so it'll be easier for you to move dates if needed. Simple. There was that word again. Practical, simple, easy. Code for less important. I'll think about it, I said, and ended the call before my voice could break. James found me that evening sitting on our apartment floor, surrounded by wedding planning materials I'd been organizing. I'd barely moved in 2 hours, just staring at the calendar we'd marked up with important dates. He sat down beside me, not saying anything, just being there. That was one of his gifts, knowing when words would help and when silence was better. Finally, I spoke. My mother asked me to consider changing our wedding date in case Vanessa gets engaged and wants to get married around the same time. His jaw tightened. Your wedding date that's already set, that you've already planned around? She said our wedding is simpler, so it would be easier for us to change. Emma, I know. I leaned against him, feeling the tears I'd been holding back start to surface. I know what you're going to say, that I should tell them no, that this is our day, that I matter too. And you're right. But James, I've spent my whole life being the easy one, the flexible one, the one who doesn't make waves. I don't know how to be anything else with them. He wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. You matter, Emma. Your happiness matters. Your wedding matters. And if they can't see that, that's their failing, not yours. I didn't change our date, but the conversation left a residue, a thin film of sadness that colored everything that followed. 2 months later, Vanessa got engaged. The proposal was, predictably, spectacular. Bradley rented out an entire rooftop restaurant, filled it with roses and string lights, had a photographer and videographer capture every moment. The video went viral on social media. Vanessa in a designer dress, tears streaming down her perfect face as Bradley knelt before her with a ring that probably cost more than I made in a year. The comments were effusive. Couple goals! This is literally a fairy tale. I'm crying. My parents called me together, both on speakerphone, their excitement palpable. Isn't it wonderful? My mother gushed. Bradley's mother already has a list of possible venues. They're thinking about the Grandview Estate. You know, that mansion with the gardens? It books years in advance, but Bradley's family has connections. That's great, I said. When are they thinking? Well, that's the thing. They're looking at dates in April. I know that's close to yours, but how close? April 8th, a week before yours. A week. 1 week between my sister's wedding and mine, which meant, realistically, that in the flurry of preparations for Vanessa's big day, my small ceremony would be an afterthought, a footnote, the thing that came after. I see, I said. You understand, don't you, honey? The Grandview only had that date available. Bradley's family has already put down a deposit. It's such a perfect venue. You should see the pictures. It's absolutely stunning. And your wedding is the following week, so everyone will already be in town. It'll work out perfectly. 2 celebrations, back to back. Won't that be nice? Nice for everyone but me, I thought, but didn't say. The formal invitation to Vanessa's wedding arrived 6 weeks later, heavy cardstock in a thick envelope lined with gold foil. I opened it with trembling hands. My name wasn't on it. I stared at the invitation for a long time, reading and rereading the names listed. Mr. and Mrs. Richard Thornton request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Vanessa Marie Thornton, to Mr. Bradley James Cunningham. My parents' names, Vanessa's name, Bradley's full name, even his middle name. But nowhere, absolutely nowhere, was there any mention of me. No and family, no Emma Thornton. Nothing. I called my mother. She answered cheerfully. Emma, did you get the invitation? Isn't it gorgeous? The designer did such a beautiful job. Mom, my name isn't on the invitation. Silence. Mom? Oh, that. Well, sweetheart, the thing is, the guest list got quite large very quickly. Bradley's family has a lot of business connections, and there are certain people who have to be invited, and the venue has a capacity limit, and we had to make some difficult decisions about the guest list. My hand was shaking. Are you telling me I'm not invited to my own sister's wedding? It's not like that, Emma. It's just, you have to understand, this is a very high profile event. There will be photographers, social media influencers, people from Bradley's business world. Your father and I discussed it with Vanessa and Bradley, and we thought it might be better if we kept it to the immediate family and their close friends. I am immediate family. I'm her sister. I know, honey, but you have to see it from our perspective. Your lifestyle is so different from theirs. You work in social services, you live in that neighborhood, and James is a public school teacher. Bradley's associates are all very successful, very polished people. We didn't want you to feel uncomfortable. You didn't want me to make them uncomfortable, you mean? Emma, that's not fair. Not fair? You're excluding me from my sister's wedding because you're ashamed of me? Because I'm not successful enough, not polished enough, not good enough to be seen with your other daughter on her special day? You're taking this the wrong way. How else should I take it, Mom? You've basically told me that my job, my fiancé, my life, that I'm an embarrassment to you. Now you're being dramatic. We just thought, I have to go, I said and hung up. I stood in my kitchen, my small, modest kitchen in my apartment above the laundromat, and I felt something inside me finally crack. Not break, not shatter, but crack. Like ice on a pond in early spring, that moment when the surface integrity is compromised, but it's still technically intact. James came home an hour later to find me sitting on the couch, the wedding invitation on the coffee table in front of me. What's wrong? He asked immediately, dropping his bag and crossing to me. I told him. All of it. The conversation with my mother, the reasoning, the casual cruelty of being excluded from my own sister's wedding because I wasn't impressive enough to be seen there. His face went through several expressions, confusion, disbelief, anger, before settling on something I couldn't quite name. Protective, maybe? Fierce. They can't do this to you, he said. They already did. Then I don't know, we'll go anyway. We'll show up. You're her sister. James, I can't crash my sister's wedding. Can you imagine showing up uninvited, making a scene at the Grandview estate in front of all Bradley's business associates? That's exactly the kind of thing they're worried about. So what? You're just going to accept this? I looked at him, this good man who loved me, who was ready to fight battles for me that I was too tired to fight myself. What choice do I have? You always have a choice, Emma. But did I? My whole life, I'd had the choice between making waves and keeping the peace, between asserting myself and being easy to deal with. And every single time, I'd chosen to be easy. I'd swallowed my hurt, minimized my needs, accepted the scraps of attention my family offered, and pretended they were enough. I was so tired of pretending. I need to think, I said. Over the next few days, I turned it over and over in my mind. Part of me wanted to call my mother back, to beg, to promise I'd wear something appropriate and be on my best behavior, to plead for a place at my own sister's wedding. Part of me wanted to show up anyway, to force them to acknowledge me. Part of me wanted to explode, to tell them exactly what I thought of their cruel calculus that measured people's worth by their income and social status. But mostly, I just felt hollow, emptied out. Like all those years of feeling secondary had finally accumulated into something I could no longer carry. I didn't call my mother back. I didn't beg. I didn't explode. I just let the silence stretch. Vanessa called me 2 weeks before her wedding. Emma, hi, it's me. Hi, I heard what happened with the invitation, or, the lack of invitation. Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't my idea. Well, it was Mom and Dad who really pushed for it, but I should have fought harder for you to be there. Bradley's family is very particular about these things, and there was all this pressure about the guest list, and I got caught up in everything, and I'm sorry. She sounded genuinely apologetic, which somehow made it worse. If she'd been cruel or dismissive, I could have been angry, but she just sounded overwhelmed, like I was one more thing on a very long list of complications. It's okay, I heard myself say, falling back into that old pattern. Be easy, don't make waves. Is it? Because you sound upset. Vanessa, it's your wedding. You should have whoever you want there. But you're my sister. And yet, I'm not invited. She was quiet for a moment. I really am sorry, Emma. I know. Are we okay? Were we? I didn't know. I didn't know if we'd ever really been okay, or if I'd just been performing okayness for so long that everyone believed it. Yeah, I said, because it was easier than the truth. We're okay. After we hung up, I sat with my phone in my hand, staring at nothing. James was at a teacher training session. The apartment was quiet, except for the rumble of the dryers below, that constant rhythm that usually soothed me, but now just sounded like white noise filling empty space. I thought about my wedding, 1 week after Vanessa's, my small, simple ceremony in a public park, the reception at a local restaurant that we'd chosen because the owner was kind and the food was good and we could actually afford it. The guest list of about 40 people, our close friends, James's family, a few colleagues from work. I'd sent my parents an invitation months ago, of course. They'd said they would come, though my mother had mentioned something about being exhausted from wedding preparations and hopefully will have recovered by then. Looking at it now, I wondered if they'd actually show up. Or if they'd find some excuse, some reason why they couldn't make it. Too tired from Vanessa's wedding, too busy, something. That night, when James got home, I was making dinner, pasta with vegetables, nothing fancy, but it smelled good and gave me something to do with my hands. Hey, he said, coming up behind me to kiss my cheek. How was your day? Vanessa called. Oh? She apologized, said it wasn't really her idea to exclude me, that my parents pushed for it, that Bradley's family is particular. But she went along with it? Yeah. He was quiet, watching me stir the pasta. How are you feeling? I don't know. Numb, I guess. It's like I keep waiting to feel angrier or more hurt, but I just feel empty. Like I finally ran out of the capacity to be surprised by them. That's not a good empty, Emma. No, I agreed. It's not. We ate dinner mostly in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Later, curled up on the couch together, James reading student essays and me pretending to read a book, I found myself thinking about weddings. Not the ceremony itself, not the party or the dress or the decorations, but what a wedding was supposed to mean. A celebration of love, yes, but also a public declaration, a way of saying to everyone who mattered, this is who I choose, this is what matters to me, witness this moment with me. My sister's wedding would be witnessed by hundreds of people, photographed and posted and admired. It would be beautiful and expensive and perfect, every detail curated for maximum impact. And mine? Mine would be witnessed by a handful of people in a park. No professional photographer, just our friend Marcus with a decent camera. No designer dress, I'd found something pretty at a consignment shop for $200. No expensive catering, we were doing heavy appetizers at the restaurant instead of a full sit-down dinner. My wedding was everything my family would consider inadequate. But it was real, it was ours, and everyone who would be there actually wanted to be there, actually cared about James and me, actually believed in what we were building together. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that had to be enough. April 8th arrived with unseasonably perfect weather. Clear skies, temperatures in the low 70s, a light breeze that carried the smell of early spring blooms. I knew this because I checked the weather report obsessively, imagining my sister's wedding day picture perfect and flawless. James and I had both taken the day off work, though not for the wedding I wasn't invited to. We went to see a movie, had lunch at our favorite Thai place, walked through a different park, and talked about everything except the obvious. He held my hand and made terrible jokes and tried to keep my mind occupied. Around 4 o'clock, I checked social media. I couldn't help myself. The photos were already appearing. Vanessa in her dress, custom made of course, with layers of intricate lace and a train that seemed to go on forever. The Grandview Estates gardens in full bloom, creating a backdrop that looked like something from a dream. Bradley looking sharp in his tuxedo, his groomsmen lined up behind him like a magazine spread. My parents featured prominently in the photos, my mother in a designer gown, my father distinguished in his suit, both of them beaming, radiating pride and joy. The caption on one photo read, "The proud parents of the bride." I scrolled through dozens of photos. The ceremony, the reception, the first dance, everything was beautiful. Everything was perfect. Vanessa looked like a princess, and everyone looked so happy. I wasn't in a single photograph, not one, as if I didn't exist, as if my parents had only one daughter and this was her moment of glory. "Put the phone down," James said gently, taking it from my hand. "You don't need to torture yourself with this." "I'm not," I said, but we both knew I was lying. That night, I dreamed I was at Vanessa's wedding, standing at the edge of the garden, watching from a distance. Every time I tried to walk closer, the distance stretched further until I was so far away I could barely see the celebration. Just lights and movement and the suggestion of laughter, all of it unreachable. I woke up at 3 in the morning, James's arm warm around me, and stared at the ceiling, trying to remember when I'd last felt like I truly belonged anywhere. The week between Vanessa's wedding and mine moved in strange ways, simultaneously too fast and too slow. My phone stayed mostly silent. My parents didn't call to check on me. Vanessa was presumably on her honeymoon. She'd posted one photo from an airport before going dark, which was unusual for her, but understandable. None of them asked how I was feeling. None of them acknowledged the cruelty of what had happened. It was like the wedding had happened in an alternate reality that didn't intersect with mine. James's mother, Patricia, called me 3 days before our wedding. "Emma, sweetheart, I just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" The question, asked with genuine concern and care, nearly undid me. "I'm okay." You don't have to be okay, you know. What your parents did, what your whole family did, that was wrong. I want you to know that John and I are honored to be at your wedding. You're important to us, and this day is important, and we can't wait to celebrate with you and James. I pressed my hand to my mouth, fighting back tears. "Thank you, Patricia. That means more than you know. You're going to be a beautiful bride, and it's going to be a beautiful day. Focus on that, okay? Focus on the love, not the absence." After we hung up, I let myself cry, not the angry, bitter tears I'd expected, but something softer, grief maybe, for the family I'd wanted but never had. Relief that I was marrying into a family that actually saw me. 2 days before the wedding, my mother finally called. "Emma, hi. We just got your father's suit back from the cleaners and realized we never confirmed what time should we be at the park." It took me a moment to respond. "You're still planning to come?" "Of course we're coming. You're our daughter. It's your wedding." I could have pointed out the irony. I could have said something cutting about selective family membership. Instead, I just gave her the time and location details and ended the call as quickly as possible. "They're coming," I told James that evening. He looked up from the seating chart we'd been working on. "Your parents?" "Yeah." "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Part of me wishes they'd just stay away, but part of me still wants them there, which makes me feel pathetic." "It doesn't make you pathetic. They're your parents. It's natural to want them there, even after everything." "Is it, though? Or is it just me being unable to let go of wanting their approval?" He set down the seating chart and came to sit beside me. "Emma, listen to me. Whatever you're feeling is valid. If you want them there, that's okay. If you don't want them there, that's also okay. There's no right way to feel about this. I wish I could just not care. I wish I could be one of those people who cuts toxic family out of their life and moves on and never looks back. But you're not that person. You're someone who feels deeply, who wants connection, who hopes for the best in people even when they've repeatedly disappointed you. That's not weakness, Emma. That's actually courage." I leaned against him, letting his solid presence ground me. "I love you. I love you too. And tomorrow we're going to get married, and it's going to be perfect because it's ours." The night before our wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed in my apartment, soon to be our apartment officially, though James had basically moved in months ago, and ran through the details in my mind. We'd kept the ceremony intentionally simple. No wedding party, just James and me. Our friend Rebecca, who'd gotten ordained online, would officiate. We'd written our own vows. The ceremony would take place under a large oak tree in the park, the same tree that had shaded the bench where we'd first met. For the reception, we'd reserved the back room of Lucia's, a family-owned Italian restaurant where the food was incredible and the owner, Lucia herself, had taken a personal interest in making our celebration special. We'd have appetizers, music from a local DJ who was giving us a friend rate, and a small cake from the bakery down the street from the community center where I worked. Nothing elaborate, nothing expensive, nothing that would look good in magazine spreads or go viral on social media. But it would be real. It would be us. I'd also made one other decision, one I hadn't fully discussed with James yet. I'd asked Marcus, our friend with the camera, to set up a live stream of the ceremony. Not for attention, not for any grand reason, simply because we had friends who couldn't travel to be there. A few of James's college friends who lived across the country, a colleague of mine who'd moved to Seattle for a new job, people we cared about who wanted to witness our moment but couldn't physically attend. Marcus had set up a simple streaming link, something free and basic, nothing professional, just a way to share the moment with people who mattered to us. I'd sent the link to about 15 people with a message, "If you want to watch, here's the link. No pressure. Just wanted to share this with you." Simple, intimate, a small gesture of inclusion for people who actually cared about us. Around 2 a.m, James stirred beside me. "You're awake. Can't sleep. Nervous?" "A little. Mostly excited. Also terrified. Is that normal?" He propped himself up on one elbow, looking at me in the darkness. "Completely normal. I'm terrified too." "Of marrying me?" "Of letting you down. Of not being enough." I turned to face him fully. "James, you're everything. You're the first person who ever made me feel like I was enough, exactly as I am. You are enough. You're more than enough. And tomorrow, I get to tell you that in front of everyone we love, and it's going to be perfect. Even if it's simple? Especially because it's simple. Simple means honest. Simple means real. Simple means it's about us, not about impressing anyone or living up to some standard. I don't want elaborate Emma. I just want you." We fell asleep like that, holding each other, and when I woke up a few hours later to the pale light of dawn, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: peace. April 15th dawned clear and bright, the kind of day that felt like the world was offering a gift. I woke up in my apartment alone. James had spent the night at his brother's place, honoring the tradition of not seeing each other before the ceremony, even though we'd laughed about it being superstitious nonsense. Patricia and James's Aunt Carol came over at 9 to help me get ready. They brought coffee and bagels and filled my small apartment with warmth and laughter. Patricia did my hair, weaving small white flowers through the simple updo. Carol helped with my makeup, keeping it natural and light. My dress hung on the closet door, simple, ivory, with lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. It had cost $200 at a consignment shop, and when I'd tried it on, I'd cried because it felt exactly right. Not because it was expensive or designer or Instagram-worthy, but because it felt like me. Around 11, we loaded into Carol's car to head to the park. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Running a bit late. Vanessa got in late last night and we're all exhausted. Be there soon." I stared at the message. Vanessa got in late last night? From her honeymoon? And apparently my parents thought that was an excuse for being late to my wedding. "Everything okay?" Patricia asked. "Fine," I said, tucking my phone away. "Everything's fine." We arrived at the park at noon. The ceremony was scheduled for 1 o'clock, giving us time to do a final check of everything. Marcus was already there, setting up chairs, just 20 of them in 2 small rows, and testing his camera equipment. "Hey, bride," he called out, grinning. "You look amazing." "Thanks, Marcus. How's the setup looking?" "Good. I've got the main camera here for recording, and I set up the live stream like you asked. It's already active, so your long-distance friends can tune in whenever." "Perfect." I walked to the oak tree where the ceremony would take place. Someone, probably Patricia, had attached white ribbons to the lower branches, and they moved gently in the breeze. It was beautiful in its simplicity. No arches, no elaborate floral arrangements, no Instagram-perfect backdrop. Just a tree, some ribbons, and the promise of new beginnings. Guests started arriving around 12:30. James's family, our friends from work, my old college roommate who'd driven 4 hours to be there. Each arrival felt like a small affirmation. These people cared enough to show up, to witness this moment, to celebrate with us. By 12:45, most of the chairs were filled. My parents hadn't arrived yet. By 12:55, I stopped checking my phone for updates. At 1 o'clock exactly, James appeared from the other side of the park, walking toward me with his brother beside him. He wore a simple navy suit, and when he saw me, his whole face lit up with a smile so genuine and full of love that everything else fell away. My parents weren't there, Vanessa wasn't there, but James was there, and his family was there, and people who actually cared about us were there, and suddenly that was enough. Rebecca, our officiant, cleared her throat. "Is everyone ready?" I looked at James, he looked at me. We both nodded. "Then let's begin." I walked toward him, no music, no processional, just me moving toward the person I loved under an oak tree in a public park. When I reached him, he took my hands in his, and I felt anchored, steady, home. Rebecca began speaking about love and commitment, but I was only half listening. I was looking at James, memorizing this moment, the way the afternoon light caught in his hair, the slight tremor in his hands that told me he was as nervous as I was, the absolute certainty in his eyes. "James and Emma have chosen to write their own vows," Rebecca said. "James, would you like to go first?" He nodded, squeezing my hands. "Emma, I'm not good at big romantic gestures. I can't rent out rooftop restaurants or fill rooms with roses. I'm a 4th grade teacher who thinks pizza is a perfectly acceptable dinner and who owns way too many novelty ties about science. But what I can do is promise to see you, really see you. Not just the parts that are easy or convenient, but all of you. Your kindness, your strength, your terrible taste in reality TV shows, your beautiful, caring heart. I promise to choose you every day, not because you're perfect, but because you're perfect for me. I promise to build a life with you that's real and honest and good. You're my best friend, Emma, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice in saying yes to me." I was crying before he finished, tears spelling down my cheeks. Patricia handed me a tissue from somewhere, and I dabbed at my eyes, laughing a little. "Your turn," Rebecca said gently. I took a shaky breath. "James, you are the first person who ever made me feel like I was someone's first choice. Not a consolation prize, not an afterthought, but someone's first choice. You taught me that love isn't about being impressive or living up to impossible standards. It's about being real with someone and having them love you anyway. Being real with someone and having them love you because of it. I promise to build a life with you that's filled with small, beautiful moments. Sunday morning coffee and terrible puns and late-night conversations about everything and nothing. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word, your friend, your supporter, your home. I love you, James. I love you for seeing me when I felt invisible. I love you for choosing me every day, exactly as I am." Rebecca smiled, blinking back what might have been her own tears. "By the power vested in me by the state and the internet, I now pronounce you married. James, kiss your wife." He did, and it was perfect. Our small group erupted in applause and cheers. We turned to face them, holding hands, and I felt a swell of gratitude for every single person there. They'd chosen to spend their Saturday afternoon in a park, witnessing 2 ordinary people make extraordinary promises to each other. We took photos under the oak tree, Marcus directing us with an ease that made everything feel natural. James's nephew, the same one from the basketball court all those months ago, kept photobombing with silly faces, making everyone laugh. Patricia wiped away tears while trying to pretend she wasn't crying. Carol organized people for group shots with the efficiency of a military general. Around 2 o'clock, we started making our way to Lucia's for the reception. That's when my phone rang. My mother. I almost didn't answer. But something, habit maybe, or that stubborn hope that refuses to die even when it should, made me pick up. "Emma, oh my God, honey, we're so sorry. We overslept and then there was traffic and we're just getting into the city now. Where are you? We're coming straight there." I looked at James, who was watching me with concern. I looked at the oak tree where we'd just gotten married. I looked at the people I loved, all of them heading toward their cars, excited for food and celebration. "The ceremony is over," I said. "What? No, it was supposed to be at 1. "It was at 1. It's now after 2. We're heading to the reception." Oh no. "Emma, honey, I'm so sorry. We'll come to the reception then. Where is it?" I closed my eyes. "Mom, don't bother." "What do you mean, don't bother? It's your wedding. You missed it. You missed my wedding. And honestly, I don't want you at the reception. I don't want to spend my wedding day dealing with your excuses or your guilt or your presence as an afterthought. I'm done." "Emma, that's not fair." "Not fair? You excluded me from Vanessa's wedding because I wasn't good enough to be seen there. And then you couldn't even be bothered to show up to mine on time." "No, Mom, I'm done being understanding. I'm done being flexible. I'm done making myself smaller so you don't have to feel bad about treating me like I don't matter. Enjoy the rest of your day." I hung up. My hand was shaking, but I felt something that might have been liberation. James pulled me into a hug. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, surprised to find that I meant it. "Yeah, I really am." The reception at Lucia's was everything I'd hoped for. The food was incredible. Plates of bruschetta and arancini and caprese skewers, pasta dishes that made everyone moan with appreciation, and finally our small 2-tier cake decorated simply with fresh flowers. Lucia herself came out to congratulate us, kissing both our cheeks and telling us we were bellissimi together. The DJ played a mix of songs that got even the most reluctant dancers on the floor. James's nephew taught everyone the floss, which looked ridiculous when attempted by people over 40, but made everyone laugh until they cried. Around 4 o'clock, Marcus pulled me aside. "Hey, Emma, I need to show you something." He had his laptop open, pulled up to the live stream page. "Your stream got a lot more viewers than expected." "Oh, how many?" "Well, you sent it to about 15 people, right?" "Yeah." "You currently have about 3,500 viewers." I stared at the number. That can't be right. "It's right, and it's climbing. Look at the comments." I leaned in to read the chat scrolling by on the side. "This is the most genuine wedding I've ever seen. Why am I crying over strangers getting married? This is what real love looks like. The vows, ugh. Can we talk about how beautiful this park ceremony was? Better than any fancy venue. I needed James in my life. The way he looks at her, I'm sobbing." More and more comments appeared, dozens per second. The viewer count ticked up, 3,600, 3,700, 3,800. "How is this happening?" I asked. Marcus shrugged, looking as bewildered as I felt. "Best I can figure, someone who you sent the link to shared it on social media. Maybe they thought it was beautiful and wanted to share, and then it got shared more and more." "It's going viral, Emma. Viral. Like actually viral. You're trending on Twitter. There are already clips being shared on Instagram and TikTok. Look." He pulled up his phone, showing me a TikTok video someone had made. It was a clip of our vows, just about a minute long, with the text overlay. "This couple had a simple park wedding, and these vows made me believe in love again." It had 200,000 likes, and it had been posted 20 minutes ago. "Oh my God," I whispered. James appeared beside me. "Everything okay?" "Our wedding is going viral," I said, showing him Marcus's laptop. His eyes widened. "What? How?" "The live stream. People are sharing it. A lot of people." We stood there, the three of us, watching in real time as thousands of strangers tuned in to watch our wedding ceremony. This is more romantic than any movie. They look so happy. No fancy venue, no expensive dress, just pure love. I've been to weddings that cost $100K and didn't have half this much genuine emotion. Someone send this to everyone planning a wedding right now. The simplicity makes it so much more powerful. Why is this making me cry? I don't even know them. By 5 o'clock, the viewer count had passed 10,000. By 6, it was at 50,000. News sites were starting to pick it up. I saw notifications for articles with headlines like, "Couple's simple park wedding goes viral for all the right reasons," and "In era of elaborate weddings, this couple's genuine vows strike a chord." I felt like I was in a dream, or maybe a very strange, very public fever dream. My phone started ringing, unknown numbers. I didn't answer. Then texts started coming in from people I hadn't talked to in years. Emma, I just saw your wedding online. Congratulations. Is that really you? The wedding everyone's talking about? Your ceremony made me cry. So beautiful. And then around 7 o'clock, a text from Vanessa. Emma, what the hell? Your wedding is everywhere. Mom and Dad are freaking out. People are leaving comments on my wedding photos comparing them to yours. What happened? I stared at the text for a long moment, then showed it to James. He laughed. Actually laughed. Are you serious? Apparently. What are you going to tell her? I thought about it. I thought about all the years of feeling secondary, all the times I'd been made to feel like I wasn't enough, all the ways my family had treated me like I was an embarrassment to them. And then I thought about my wedding day. Simple, genuine, real. Witnessed not by hundreds of carefully selected guests trying to impress each other, but by people who loved us, and, apparently, by thousands of strangers who'd been moved by something authentic. I texted Vanessa back. I got married. That's what happened. Congratulations on your honeymoon. Then I put my phone on silent and slipped it into my purse. Dance with me, I said to James. He pulled me onto the dance floor, and we swayed together while Lucia's daughter sang along to the music, and our friends laughed and talked around us, and for that moment, I didn't think about going viral or my family or anything, except the fact that I was married to someone who loved me, surrounded by people who cared about us, and that was enough. That was more than enough. The next morning, James and I woke up late in the cheap hotel room we'd booked for our wedding night, too tired from the celebration to care about going anywhere fancy. We'd planned a small honeymoon, a long weekend at a cabin upstate, nothing elaborate, just time together away from everything. I turned on my phone to check the time and immediately regretted it. Hundreds of notifications, texts, emails, social media alerts, missed calls. I scrolled through them with increasing disbelief. The live stream had been viewed over 500,000 times. 500,000 people had watched us get married. News articles had multiplied overnight. Viral wedding video reminds us what really matters. The simple wedding that's making people rethink everything. In age of Instagram weddings, this couple's authentic moment resonates. Someone had created a Twitter thread breaking down why our wedding had resonated with so many people, comparing it to the excessive performative nature of modern celebrity weddings. The thread had gone viral too, with tens of thousands of retweets and comments. There were compilation videos on YouTube, think pieces on wedding culture, reactions from wedding planners and relationship experts. Even a few celebrities had shared the video with comments about how refreshing it was to see something real. And then I saw the messages from my family. My mother, Emma, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. People are saying terrible things about our family. My father, call me immediately. This situation needs to be addressed. Vanessa, people are commenting on all my wedding photos, comparing them to yours. They're calling my wedding shallow and fake. This is humiliating. Can you ask people to stop? I read the messages twice, then handed my phone to James. He read them, his expression darkening. Are they serious right now? Apparently. Emma, they missed your wedding. They excluded you from your sister's wedding. They've treated you like you weren't good enough for years, and now they're upset because your genuine, heartfelt ceremony resonated with people? When you put it that way, there's no other way to put it. They're upset because the daughter they were ashamed of is getting positive attention, and it's making them look bad by comparison. He was right, of course. I knew he was right, but I still felt that familiar pull, that ingrained instinct to make things easier for them, to smooth over the tension, to apologize for taking up space. I started scrolling through the comments on various posts about our wedding. Most were positive, supportive, full of people sharing their own stories about family rejection or simple weddings or finding love that was real rather than performative. But there were also comments that had clearly found their way to my family's social media. Interesting that the parents couldn't even show up to this daughter's wedding but were all over the other daughter's expensive one. Money can't buy the genuine emotion in Emma's wedding. You can see the difference. The The sister's wedding looked pretty but felt empty. This one felt real. Those parents should be ashamed of how they treated this daughter. I could imagine how my mother would react to comments like these. The shame, the anger, the sense of being judged by thousands of strangers. Part of me felt bad for them, but a larger part of me felt nothing. Or not nothing exactly. I felt calm, clear, like something that had been cloudy for years had suddenly come into focus. I'm not going to respond, I told James. To any of them? To any of them, not right now, maybe not for a while. We're supposed to be on our honeymoon. We're supposed to be celebrating us. I'm not going to let their drama take that away. He kissed my forehead. I love you. I love you too. We spent that day avoiding social media and the internet entirely. We drove up to the cabin we'd rented, a small A-frame tucked into the woods with a view of a lake. We unpacked our bags, went for a long walk, made dinner together in the tiny kitchen, and spent the evening on the porch watching the sunset. No phones, no notifications, no viral videos or news articles or family drama. Just us, and the quiet and the peace of being exactly where we wanted to be. But reality, of course, has a way of intruding. On day 3 of our honeymoon, there was a knock at the cabin door. We looked at each other in confusion. We hadn't ordered anything, and the cabin was remote enough that random visitors were unlikely. I opened the door to find a woman in her 30s with a professional camera bag slung over her shoulder. Emma Miller? She asked. I'd taken James's last name. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Kate Morrison from the New York Times. I'm doing a piece on modern wedding culture and authenticity, and your wedding has become a sort of cultural touchstone for this conversation. Would you be willing to do an interview? The New York Times? Yes, I understand this is your honeymoon, and I apologize for the intrusion. But I think your story and your perspective on why simplicity and authenticity resonated with so many people. We could do it right now, or if you prefer, I could come back another time, or we could set up a phone call. Kate, I interrupted gently, I appreciate your interest, but I'm not interested in being interviewed. This was just my wedding. I didn't plan for it to go viral. I didn't plan any of this. I understand, but that's exactly what makes it interesting. In a world where everything is curated and performed, your unintentional authenticity broke through. People are hungry for that. They're reconsidering their own choices, their own values. Don't you think that's worth discussing? Maybe, I said, but not by me. I'm not a spokesperson for anything. I'm just someone who got married in a park and happened to live stream it for some friends. That's it. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. I respect that, but if you change your mind, she handed me a business card, my contact information, the offer stands. After she left, James came to stand beside me at the door. A reporter from the Times? Apparently we're a cultural touchstone now. How do you feel about that? I looked at the business card in my hand, then at James, then out at the lake where the afternoon sun was turning the water into liquid gold. Weird, I said honestly. Really, really weird. But also, I don't know, not upset. People saw something real and it meant something to them. That's nice, I guess. But I don't need to be the face of some movement or make statements about wedding culture. I just want to live my life. Then that's what we'll do. Over the next few days, more requests came in. Morning show appearances, magazine features, a podcast about relationships wanted us to be guests. There was even an offer from a greeting card company that wanted to use our vows in their wedding card line. We declined everything. It wasn't about being stubborn or difficult. It was about maintaining the very thing that had made our wedding resonate in the first place, its genuine, unperformed nature. The moment we started doing interviews and appearances, it would become something else. It would become a brand, a narrative, a thing to be packaged and sold. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be Emma, married to James, living our quiet life, helping families at the community center, teaching 4th graders about fractions and the solar system. I wanted to be ordinary in the best possible way. On our last day at the cabin, I finally turned my phone back on properly and went through the messages I'd been avoiding. My mother had sent 17 texts and called 11 times. The messages evolved from angry, you need to respond to me, to hurt, why are you ignoring your family, to almost pleading, people are saying terrible things about us, Emma, this needs to stop. Vanessa had sent fewer messages, but they followed a similar pattern. anger, hurt, confusion. My father, characteristically, had sent just 3 texts. Call me. This is getting ridiculous. Emma. I felt that familiar weight settle over me, that sense of being responsible for everyone else's emotions, of needing to fix things, to make peace, to smooth everything over. Then I remembered James's words from before the wedding. You always have a choice. I did have a choice. I could respond, engage, get drawn back into the family dynamics that had hurt me for so many years, or I could choose something else. I texted my mother. I'm on my honeymoon. I'll contact you when James and I are back and settled, but I want to be clear. I didn't do anything to you. I got married. The fact that my wedding resonated with people isn't something I can control, and it's not something I owe you an apology for. I hope you can understand that. We'll talk when I'm ready. I sent a similar message to my father and Vanessa, then put my phone away again. Done? James asked. For now. How do you feel? I thought about it. Lighter. Is that terrible? My family is upset and I feel lighter. That's not terrible. That's growth. We drove home the next day, back to our apartment above the laundromat, back to our regular lives. But of course, our regular lives had shifted slightly. People recognized us on the street occasionally. Our story was still circulating online. We got mail from strangers, mostly positive, people sharing their own wedding stories or thanking us for reminding them what mattered. I went back to work at the community center. My coworkers had seen the viral video, of course, and there were jokes and congratulations, and someone had put up a "celebrity in our midst" sign on my office door, which I took down while laughing. But mostly, life went back to normal. We cooked dinner together, watched bad reality TV, argued good-naturedly about whose turn it was to do dishes. James graded papers at the kitchen table while I read case files for work. We were ordinary in all the best ways. 3 weeks after the wedding, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but I was ready now. I'd had time to process, to sit with my feelings, to understand what I needed. Hi, Mom. Emma. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk about this situation. Okay. First of all, you need to understand how humiliating this has been for your father and me. People we know, people we do business with, they've all seen this video. They've seen the comments. We've been painted as terrible parents who neglected and excluded their daughter. Did you? I asked quietly. Neglect and exclude me? Silence. Mom, that's not fair, Emma. We did our best. We gave you everything. You gave me things. You gave me a place to live and food and education, but you never gave me the one thing I actually needed, to feel like I mattered to you as much as Vanessa did. That's not true. We love both our daughters. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you love Vanessa. I'm just there, the backup daughter, the one who gets acknowledged when there's nothing more interesting happening. Emma, you're being unfair. Am I? You excluded me from Vanessa's wedding because you were ashamed of me. You missed my wedding because you overslept after Vanessa's honeymoon flight. Even now, you're not calling because you miss me or want to repair our relationship. You're calling because my wedding went viral and it's making you look bad. Do you see the pattern, Mom? She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. I didn't realize you felt this way. How could you not realize? I've spent my entire life watching you light up for Vanessa while barely noticing me. I've watched you brag about her accomplishments to everyone while describing mine as practical. I've felt invisible my whole life, and the one time I wasn't, when thousands of people saw something genuine and beautiful in my wedding, you're upset because it reflects poorly on you. She paused. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her trying to formulate a response that would fix this, smooth it over, make it okay. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Just listen. I love you, Mom. I love Dad. I love Vanessa. But I can't keep making myself smaller to make you more comfortable. I can't keep apologizing for not being the daughter you wanted me to be. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, and I'm married to someone who sees that and loves me for it. That's enough for me now. It has to be enough. So what are you saying? You're cutting us out? No, I'm saying I need space. I need time. And when we do reconnect, it needs to be different. I need you to actually see me, not just tolerate me. I need you to be proud of who I am, not embarrassed. And if you can't do that, at a 1.0, then maybe we need more distance than I thought. I heard her inhale sharply, like I'd struck her. Maybe I had. But sometimes truth strikes like that. I need to go, I said. Take care of yourself, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. James was in the doorway, having clearly heard the whole conversation. He came over and pulled me into a hug, and I let myself lean into him, feeling the weight of years of unspoken hurt finally being released. I'm proud of you, he said. Yeah? Yeah, that took courage. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Also valid. I laughed despite myself. What now? Now we keep living our life. We keep being us. And whatever happens with your family happens. But you've said what needed to be said. The rest is up to them. The months that followed were strange and uncomfortable and ultimately freeing. My parents didn't call, neither did Vanessa. There was no dramatic confrontation, no big moment of reconciliation or permanent break. Just silence, space, distance. It hurt, of course it hurt, but it also felt necessary, like lancing a wound that had been infected for years. Meanwhile, the attention around our wedding gradually faded. The viral video became old news, replaced by new stories and trends and moments. Occasionally, someone would recognize us and mention it, usually saying something like, "You're that couple from the wedding video. That was beautiful." And we'd smile and thank them and move on. Life became beautifully ordinary again. James got a commendation at school for his innovative teaching methods. I helped a teenage mom get into a job training program that changed her life trajectory. We adopted a cat from the shelter, a cranky orange tabby we named Meatball, who slept on our bed and judged our life choices. We celebrated our first anniversary in the same park where we'd gotten married, just the two of us, with sandwiches from the deli and cheap wine and plastic cups. It was perfect. Then, about 13 months after our wedding, my mother called again. "Emma, it's Mom. I was wondering if you and James might want to come to dinner. Nothing big, just family. Your father and I would like to see you." I looked at James, who was watching me carefully. I mouthed, "Dinner invitation," and he nodded, leaving the decision to me. "What about Vanessa?" I asked. "She and Bradley will be there too. Of course, a family dinner. All of us together, probably to try to smooth everything over, to pretend the last year of distance hadn't happened, to go back to normal. Except I didn't want normal, not the old normal. I'll come," I said, "but I need you to know that I'm different now, Mom. I'm not going to shrink myself to make everyone comfortable. If we're going to do this, we're going to be honest, real, no pretending everything is fine when it's not." "I understand. I miss you, Emma. I want to try." Those words, "I miss you," cracked something open in my chest. "Okay, when?" We set a date for the following week, a Sunday dinner at my parents' house, like we used to have before everything fell apart. The day arrived with gray skies that threatened rain but never quite delivered. James and I drove to my parents' house in our old car, his hand warm in mine. "You okay?" he asked as we pulled up to the house I'd grown up in. "Nervous, but okay." "We can leave any time you want. Just say the word." "I know. Thank you." My mother answered the door. She looked older than I remembered, more tired. She pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than usual. "Hi, sweetie. Come in. Both of you. Come in." The house smelled like roast chicken and rosemary. My father was in the living room, and he stood when we entered, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Emma, James, good to see you both." "Hi, Dad." Vanessa and Bradley were already there, sitting on the couch with drinks. Vanessa stood when she saw me, and for a moment we just looked at each other across the room. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Dinner was awkward at first, polite conversation about nothing important. The food was good. Someone commented on the weather. Bradley talked about a new property development his family was investing in. But then, halfway through the meal, my mother set down her fork and looked at me. "Emma, I've been doing a lot of thinking this past year." The table went quiet. "I watched your wedding video, not just once, many times, and I read the comments. Thousands of people talking about how genuine it was, how real, how it made them reconsider what matters." She paused, her voice catching. and I realized they saw something in you that I'd been failing to see for years. Mom, no, let me finish. Please, I was wrong about so many things. I got caught up in appearances, in status, in wanting our family to look a certain way. And in doing that, I failed to see my own daughter. I failed to appreciate who you are, your kindness, your integrity, your compassion for others. I was so busy being proud of Vanessa's success that I didn't acknowledge yours. And your success is just as valuable, more valuable maybe, because it's about helping people, not just looking good. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Across the table, I saw that Vanessa was crying too. I can't take back missing your wedding, my mother continued. I can't undo excluding you from Vanessa's. But I want to try to do better, if you'll let me, if you'll give us another chance. My father cleared his throat. Your mother's right. We've been poor parents to you, Emma. Absent when we should have been present, critical when we should have been supportive. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I looked at James, who squeezed my hand under the table. Then I looked at Vanessa. I'm sorry too, she said quietly. I should have fought for you to be at my wedding. I should have stood up to Mom and Dad. I let them exclude you because it was easier, and that was wrong. You deserved better from your sister. I wiped at my eyes, trying to compose myself. I appreciate all of you saying this. I really do. But I need you to understand that words aren't enough. If we're going to rebuild this, it has to be through actions, through actually showing up consistently, not just when it's convenient or when you're feeling guilty. We understand, my mother said. We want to try. Okay, I said, then we'll try. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. We didn't all hug and cry and instantly become a perfect family. But it was a beginning, a real one. Over the following months, my parents made efforts, small ones at first, phone calls to check in, not just about major events, but about regular life, invitations to dinner that included James and treated him as family, questions about my work that suggested genuine interest rather than polite obligation. My mother came to volunteer one day at the community center, and I watched her interact with the families I served. She was kind, patient, good with the kids. Afterwards, she told me, I see why you do this. It matters. My father started sending me articles about social work and community programs with notes like, thought you might find this interesting. Vanessa and I started having lunch together monthly, just the two of us. We talked about our lives, our marriages, our hopes and fears. We weren't as close as some sisters, but we were closer than we'd been. And slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something. Not the family we'd been before, but something new, something more honest. About 18 months after our wedding, my parents did something unexpected. They organized a small celebration, calling it a reception we should have hosted, and invited our friends and James's family and people from the community center. It wasn't elaborate. They held it in their backyard, with simple decorations and catered food from a local restaurant, but it was genuine. My mother gave a toast where she talked about my work in the community, about the difference I made in people's lives. My father pulled James aside for a long conversation, and later James told me it was an apology and a promise to do better. At a 1.0, Vanessa and Bradley were there, and Vanessa hugged me tightly and whispered, I'm proud of you, little sister. It wasn't the wedding I'd never had. It was something else, an acknowledgement, a recognition, a do-over, not of the wedding itself, but of the way my family showed up for me. Standing in my parents' backyard, surrounded by people I loved and people who loved me, I thought about that day in the park, the simple ceremony under the oak tree, the vows we've written for each other, the unintentional live stream that had somehow touched thousands of strangers. I thought about how my family had excluded me because I wasn't impressive enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't the right kind of daughter to be seen. And I thought about how the world had seen me anyway, had witnessed my truth and found it beautiful, not because I was perfect or extraordinary or impressive by any conventional standard, but because I was real, because James and I had stood in front of people we loved and promised to choose each other. And that choice, that simple, genuine choice, had resonated with something hungry in the cultural moment. People were tired of performance. Tired of everything being curated and filtered and optimized for likes and shares.
They wanted something real, and somehow our wedding had offered them that. James found me standing alone by the garden, watching the celebration. "Hey," he said, slipping his arm around my waist. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." "About?" "About how strange life is, how the things we plan rarely turn out the way we expect, how sometimes being excluded from the places we thought we belonged leads us to where we actually belong." Deep thoughts for a backyard party. I laughed. "Sorry, I'm in a reflective mood." "Don't apologize. What are you reflecting on?" I leaned into him, watching our families and friends mingling in the golden late afternoon light. That I spent so many years trying to be seen by people who weren't looking. And when I finally stopped trying, when I just lived my truth, the whole world saw me anyway. "The whole world," he repeated, smiling. "That's still wild to me. Our wedding went viral." "I know." "It's insane." "But you know what's more insane?" "What?" "That even if it hadn't gone viral, even if only the 20 people in those chairs had witnessed it, it still would have been perfect, because it was real. It was us." He was right. The viral video, the articles, the attention, all of that had been strange and unexpected, and sometimes overwhelming. But it wasn't what made our wedding matter. What made it matter was standing in a park with someone who loved me, promising to build a life together based on honesty and kindness and genuine care. The fact that thousands of strangers had witnessed that and been moved by it was, well, it was wonderful, but it was secondary to the actual thing itself. "I love you," I told James. "I love you too." My mother called us over to cut into the cake she'd ordered, a simple 2-tier vanilla cake with buttercream frosting and fresh flowers, nothing like the elaborate creation from Vanessa's wedding, but perfect for this moment. As we cut the cake together, James's hand over mine on the knife, I looked around at everyone gathered there, my parents, trying, Vanessa, present, James's family, who'd embraced me from the start. Our friends who'd shown up to that park ceremony without hesitation. This was family, not the perfect, Instagram-ready version, but the real, complicated, doing their best version, the version that stumbled and failed and tried again. That evening, after everyone had gone home and James and I were driving back to our apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Thank you for giving us another chance. I know we don't deserve it, but I promise to keep trying to be the mother you needed. I love you." I showed the text to James. "How do you feel?" he asked. Cautiously hopeful. "That's fair." We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights blurring past our windows. "You know what's funny?" I said eventually. "What?" "I spent so long wanting my family to see my worth, wanting them to choose me first, to prioritize me, to be proud of me. And when they finally started to, it wasn't because I did anything differently. It was because other people saw it first and reflected it back to them." "Does that bother you?" I thought about it. "No, not really. I mean, ideally, they would have seen it on their own. But sometimes people need external validation to recognize what was there all along, and at least they're seeing it now. And you don't need their validation anymore." "No, I don't. I have yours. I have my own. That's enough." He reached over to squeeze my hand. "You're pretty wise, you know that?" "I have my moments." We pulled up to our building, parking on the street under the familiar glow of the laundromat sign. Our apartment was small and modest and perfect. Home. As we climbed the stairs, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the years of feeling invisible, the heartbreak of being excluded from my sister's wedding, the simple ceremony in the park that had somehow become a worldwide moment. And I thought about what the viral video had really represented. Not just a wedding, not just vows, but a quiet rebellion against the idea that love and worth need to be performed, expensive, impressive. The video had resonated because people recognized in it something they'd lost or never had: authenticity in a world of performance, connection in an age of curated perfection, simple, genuine human emotion in its purest form. I hadn't set out to make any kind of statement. I just wanted to marry James in a way that felt true to who we were, but somehow that truth had mattered to people, and maybe that was the point. Maybe the most radical thing we can do is simply be ourselves, genuinely and without apology, and trust that the people who matter will see it.
My family had failed to see it for years, but eventually they did. And more importantly, I'd learned to see it in myself. I'd learned that I didn't need to be impressive or successful by conventional standards to be valuable. I didn't need a fancy wedding or designer clothes or a glamorous career to matter. I just needed to be authentic, to care about people, to build a life based on real connection rather than appearance. James and I had done that. We'd built something real together. And on one April afternoon in a public park, thousands of strangers had witnessed it and recognized something they'd been hungry for, proof that genuine love still existed, that simple could be profound, that ordinary people could create extraordinary moments just by being honestly, vulnerably themselves. That night, lying in bed next to James in our small apartment, I pulled up the wedding video on my phone one last time. I hadn't watched it in months, had actively avoided it during all the media attention and family drama. But now, with some distance and perspective, I watched it again. I watched us standing under that oak tree, the afternoon light filtering through the leaves. I watched the way James looked at me like I was the only person in the world. I watched myself speaking my vows, voice shaking slightly with emotion. I watched our friends' faces, full of love and support. And I understood why it had resonated with so many people. It wasn't perfect. The sound quality was mediocre, the framing was sometimes off. There were no special effects or professional editing. It was just two people promising to choose each other, witnessed by people who love them. But it was real, it was honest, it was us. In a world increasingly dominated by carefully curated highlight reels and performative displays of affection, we'd offered something different, an unfiltered moment of genuine emotion and connection. People had been hungry for that, starving for it. And we'd given it to them, not because we were trying to make a statement or start a movement, but simply by living our truth. I closed the video and set my phone aside, snuggling closer to James. "What are you thinking about?" he asked sleepily. "About how grateful I am for you, for this life, for everything that led us here. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. They taught me what really matters." He kissed my forehead. "You're pretty amazing, Emma Miller." "We're pretty amazing together." That too. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the fact that my story, our story, had become part of the cultural conversation, even if briefly. That we'd become, however unintentionally, a symbol of something people needed to believe in. But more than that, I thought about the fact that I finally found my place. Not in my family's hierarchy of worth, not in social media metrics or viral videos, but in a life built on genuine connection and honest love. My family had excluded me from one wedding because they were ashamed of who I was. But at my own wedding, the whole world had shown up. Not because I was impressive or successful or conventionally beautiful, but because I was real. And in the end, being real, being genuinely, unapologetically myself, had been the most powerful thing I could do. My worth wasn't determined by my family's recognition or lack thereof. It wasn't measured in Instagram followers or fancy venues or designer dresses. It was inherent, unchanging, independent of anyone else's validation. I was worthy because I existed, because I cared about people, because I showed up authentically in a world that constantly pressured everyone to perform. That simple truth, that authenticity matters, that ordinary people living genuinely matter, that love doesn't need to be expensive or elaborate to be profound, had somehow touched millions of people. And it had set me free. Free from the need for my family's approval, free from the pressure to be anyone other than myself, free to build a life that was simple and real and beautiful in its ordinariness. James's breathing had evened out beside me, and I listened to the familiar rhythm, the sound of the dryers rumbling below, the occasional car passing on the street outside. This was my life. Not perfect, not impressive by my family's old standards, but deeply, profoundly good. I had meaningful work, a partner who truly saw me, friends who showed up, a family that was learning to do better, a story that had touched people I'd never meet. But more than any of that, I had peace. The kind of peace that comes from finally accepting yourself, from no longer contorting yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you, from building something real in a world of performance. They took my place at one wedding, but I took back my peace at another, the one the whole world came to witness.